All right, let's get right into it. For the last few months, something's been silently gliding through our solar system. And this isn't just any old rock. It's a visitor from another star. And honestly, it's turning everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe completely on its head. So today, we're going to launch our own cosmic investigation into the thing that didn't stop. So this is 3I/Atlas. Now, it's the third interstellar object we've ever confirmed. You might remember the first one, that bizarre, cigar-shaped object Oumuamua. Then the second was a pretty normal-looking comet called Borisov, but this third visitor, well, it's a whole different ballgame. It is not behaving like the others, and the data it's sending back is starting to paint a very, very strange picture. You know, this quote really nails the feeling buzzing around the astronomical community right now. The official story is, oh, it's just a weird comet. But as you're about to see, the data, it just doesn't quite fit. And a growing number of scientists are looking at the evidence and saying, hang on, that explanation just doesn't add up. And that brings us right to the heart of our investigation. Are we looking at a natural, sure, a very strange piece of cosmic debris, or are we looking at something else entirely? The stakes, well, they really couldn't be higher. Okay, so here's the official take from agencies like NASA. And look, they admit it's weird. They're calling it a chemically baffling dynamic outlier. I mean, that's pretty strong language coming from a scientific body. But at the end of the day, their conclusion is conservative. It's a comet, just a dirty snowball from some other star system. It's the safest, most conventional explanation you could come up with. And this is where things get really interesting. What if we just push our assumptions to the side for a minute? What if we just follow the data, wherever it happens to lead? That's exactly what a vocal minority of scientists are pushing for. They're arguing that the data doesn't point to a rock at all. It points to a machine. So let's do that. Let's look at the actual evidence. What are these fingerprints of technology that have everyone so divided? The first set of clues comes from the object's physical properties, what it's made of and how it's moving through space. Now, check this out. A typical comet, right? When it gets close to the sun, it starts venting gas. That's mostly water and dust, and it's usually rich in iron. But 3I/Atlas, it's barely venting any water. Instead, it's just spewing out these huge concentrations of hydrogen cyanide and methanol. And here's the real kicker. It's poor in iron, but screamingly high in nickel. That chemical signature is it's wrong. It's not what a comet looks like. So you gotta ask, why so much nickel? In the natural universe, that kind of ratio is incredibly rare. But you know where it's not rare? In manufacturing. Nickel is a key ingredient for superalloys, the kind of advanced materials you'd need to build a spacecraft that could survive the brutal environment of interstellar space for millions, maybe even billions of years. Some scientists have even said this chemical profile looks less like a comet and more like industrial pollution. And it's not just what it's made of, it's how it's moving. The object is brightening and dimming with this precise rhythmic pulse every 16.16 hours. I mean, this is not the chaotic tumble of a random space rock. This suggests a controlled, stable rotation, almost like a cosmic heartbeat. Okay, let's talk about the odds here for a second. Most of the planets in our solar system, they orbit the sun on a pretty flat disk, right? We call it the ecliptic plane. So for an object just falling in from deep space at some random angle to line up perfectly with that plane, the odds are just 0.2%. Seriously, that's like throwing a dart from the top of a skyscraper and hitting a specific penny on the sidewalk below. Is it possible? Yeah, I guess. But it's so improbable that it just screams for a better explanation. Could that explanation be guidance? So, the object's physical makeup is a total anomaly. But that's only half the story. The other half is its journey. We've talked about what it is, so now let's trace its path across the stars, where it came from, and more importantly, where it seems to be going. This is the question that sent an absolute chill through the radio astronomy community. Because when you trace something's trajectory back, you expect it to come from nowhere special, just some random patch of sky. But that is not what happened here. The answer is a coincidence that is it's almost too big to ignore. The object's path traces directly back to the constellation Sagittarius, and that's the very same patch of sky where, back in 1977, we picked up the famous WOW signal, this powerful 72-second radio burst that, to this day, is our single best candidate for an alien transmission. Now, is it just a coincidence that nearly 50 years after we get a ping from that direction, a physical object shows up from the exact same vector? Now, this object isn't stopping at Earth. It's heading for a rendezvous with Jupiter. And the precision of this maneuver is just astounding. Its closest approach is going to be 53.6 million kilometers. Jupiter's gravity can capture anything that comes within 53.5 million kilometers. You see what's happening? It is perfectly skimming the absolute edge of Jupiter's gravity well. This doesn't look like a crash course, it looks like a precision flyby. This incredibly precise trajectory has led to what's being called the mothership hypothesis. Is this whole thing a deliberate maneuver? I mean, think about it. Jupiter is a giant ball of hydrogen, a perfect spot to refuel. Its huge gravity and radiation belts could also provide energy and cover for dropping off smaller secondary probes to stay behind and observe. If you wanted to leave a listening post in our system, you wouldn't park it near us, you'd hide it near Jupiter. So let's play this out for a minute. Let's assume the alien hypothesis is true. The nickel is a haul, the trajectory is guided. What does that actually mean for us, for humanity? Well, the answer might be way more unsettling than any invasion scenario we've ever dreamed up. If this thing is an automated probe, its mission is probably pretty simple. Map, catalog, and move on. It would have detected our radio signals leaking into space, analyzed our planet's atmosphere for life, and then it would have made a judgment call. And the most chilling possibility is that it classified Earth as non-threat, non-resource, and just kept going to its primary target, which seems to be Jupiter. It saw us, and it didn't stop. And that right there is the philosophical gut punch. We always assume that we're the main characters in the cosmic story, but what if we're not? What if we're just background scenery, like ants on a sidewalk that a person glances at for a second before completely forgetting they were ever there? An invasion would mean we matter, but indifference? That means we don't. So, where does all this leave us? We've got a pile of anomalous data and two competing ideas. One, it's a very, very weird rock, or two, it's a piece of technology. And the final verdict, at least for now, is really up to us to debate. To really think about this, it helps to understand something called the black swan problem. See, for centuries, people in the old world were absolutely positive that all swans were white because that's all they'd ever seen. The idea of a black swan was just unimaginable until they actually found one. The point is, if our scientific models only have boxes for rock and ice, we will never, ever find a starship. We'll just end up calling it a very strange rock every single time. And that brings us to the first of two final questions I want to leave you with. With all the evidence we've just walked through, the impossible chemistry, that controlled rotation, the ridiculously improbable trajectory, is it possible we've allowed our own assumptions to blind us? Did we just watch a piece of technology fly by and simply misclassify it as a comet? And finally, the most haunting question of all. If it was a probe and its mission was to gather data, well, it succeeded. We have been scanned. That information is now out there heading into the void. So the question isn't just, do they exist anymore? It's, what are they going to do with what they now know about us? And was this silent flyby just the beginning?